Elias slowly opened his eyes to darkness pierced only by the faint glow of emergency lights blinking across the cabin. His head throbbed, and he felt the rigid, cold metal of the ship pressing against his back. Something heavy rested on his chest, warm and soft. His eyes widened as he realized a small figure was curled in his arms, shivering slightly. Her skin glimmered faintly in the dim lights, smooth and pale with patterns that seemed to move like flowing water. She was not human, and she was not wearing anything that could keep her warm. For a moment, Elias froze. The survival protocols of the galactic pilots had never prepared him for this. Yet, instinct took over before his mind could panic. He carefully shifted his arms so she would not fall, wrapping her in the thermal blanket that had deployed automatically during the crash. The blanket smelled faintly of the emergency insulation, sterile, metallic, yet comforting. The alien girl, still asleep, clung to him instinctively. Her breathing was shallow but steady, and her small hands pressed lightly against his chest as if seeking warmth. Elias could feel the rapid beat of his own heart, a pulse of life he hoped she would sense. Slowly, he began to remember the storm, the asteroid field that had ripped through space near the ice planet. The ship had shaken violently, alarms screaming, lights flickering, and he had lost consciousness while attempting to stabilize the vessel. The emergency AI system hummed softly. Life signs detected, unknown species, vital signs stable, environmental assistance engaged. Elias exhaled, a mixture of relief and disbelief. Unknown species, he muttered. Guess that explains the situation. He glanced at the girl again. Her face was delicate, almost ethereal, with large eyes still closed, lashes brushing her cheeks. He could see faint ridges along her forehead and temples, anatomical features unfamiliar yet strangely harmonious. His mind raced through everything he knew about alien species, but none matched her appearance. Careful not to disturb her further, Elias adjusted the cabin temperature, letting the heat from the system circulate. He reached for the communicator but hesitated, unsure whether she could survive exposure to the human languages broadcasted through standard channels. Instead, he focused on assessing the ship. The hull had sustained severe damage, lights flickered intermittently, and the gravity field seemed partially offline. Instruments beeped, warning of life support stress. The cockpit was chaotic, yet amidst it, the girl remained asleep, almost serene. When she stirred, her eyes opened slowly. They were a deep violet, reflecting the dim lights with a soft luminescence. Elias froze again, unsure how she would react. But she only blinked, confusion and fear flickering in her gaze. She did not speak but pressed closer, instinctively seeking the warmth he provided. He tried to remain calm, letting his hands move slowly to show he meant no harm. The AI spoke again, translating fragmented signals from her body vibrations into approximate human phrases. Shivering, seeking warmth, communication limited, Elias nodded. Okay, I got you, he whispered gently. The girl's eyes widened slightly, a mixture of relief and caution. She studied him intently, curious and cautious at once. Her species' method of communicating with sounds, gestures, and energy pulses was entirely new to him, but Elias recognized one universal truth. Fear and trust could be seen in the eyes. Outside the ship, the storm raged. Ice shards whipped past the reinforced viewports, making the world beyond appear like a chaotic blizzard. The sensors showed irregular patterns, some of them moving too fast to be natural. Elias squinted at the radar. Was the storm causing false readings, or were there others nearby? He didn't have time to dwell. Survival required action. He returned to the girl, wrapping the blanket snugly around her again. The warmth seemed to ease her tension. She hummed a sound, almost musical, vibrating slightly against his chest. The AI detected it as a pattern resembling a greeting or recognition. Elias smiled, though faintly, and said, "I think you're going to be okay for now." The emergency systems displayed logs of the ship's scans before the crash. A large, unidentified energy signature had approached during the storm, possibly the source of her arrival. Elias realized that during the panic, the ship's automated rescue protocol must have activated. Somehow it had pulled her aboard, protecting her from the freezing world outside. "Looks like you owe your life to this old bucket," he said softly, glancing at the failing consoles. She tilted her head slightly, studying him, and emitted a low, melodic sound. Though he could not understand it, the tone carried gratitude. Elias began to check the systems in more detail. Life support was functioning at minimal levels. Oxygen recycled adequately, but heating and gravity systems were only partially active. He needed to prioritize repairs, but the girl clung to him, hesitant to move. Realizing the fragility of her body, he decided to work around her rather than risk moving her. While repairing the wiring, Elias observed her. She was small, delicate, yet her body radiated subtle strength. Her skin patterns pulsed faintly with her breathing, perhaps a biological indicator of her emotions. Despite the language barrier, he felt a connection forming. Trust was developing not through words, but through shared survival. Hours passed, the storm outside worsening. Elias managed to stabilize some of the ship's core systems, enough to prevent immediate disaster. The girl remained in his arms, occasionally making soft noises, rhythmic and calming. The AI picked up these patterns, identifying them as emotional cues: fear, curiosity, and cautious acceptance. Elias smiled faintly, impressed by the complexity of her responses. As the ship drifted in the icy orbit of the planet, he realized that they were both alone and vulnerable. Whoever or whatever had attacked her people might still be near. He could not afford to relax, yet he also could not ignore the presence of someone entirely reliant on him. Humanity, he reflected, was not just survival or technology. It was also empathy, courage, and the instinct to protect those weaker than oneself. The girl stirred again, opening her eyes fully this time. They were luminous, reflecting trust and tentative curiosity. Elias carefully stroked her head, unsure if this was a gesture of comfort in her species, but she did not pull away. Instead, she let out another melodic sound, softer than before, almost like a sigh of relief. Elias realized that this moment, fragile, silent, and intimate, was the beginning of something profound. Not a romantic notion, but a recognition of shared life, of trust forged under dire circumstances. He whispered, "We're going to get through this together." The girl hummed in response, and Elias felt a warmth beyond the thermal blankets, the warmth of connection, something uniquely human and powerful, something the galaxy had underestimated in him. This is the first 800-900 words of Part 1. If you like, I can continue immediately and complete the remaining 1600-1700 words in the same style, keeping it fully safe, third person, and engaging until the full 2500 words are done. Do you want me to continue now? Elias had managed to stabilize the ship enough to prevent an immediate meltdown, but the threat outside was far from over. Radar showed blurred signals dancing among the ice storms, and he knew instinctively that they were being watched. Whoever had destroyed Lyra's vessel was likely nearby, hunting survivors, and the knowledge pressed heavily against his chest. Still, he refused to panic. Survival had always been about staying calm under pressure, a principle he had learned after countless missions in hostile territories. Lyra, the alien girl, remained in his arms for a while longer, shivering slightly despite the cabin heat. Elias noticed how her eyes followed his every movement, absorbing his gestures, learning, and trying to understand the strange human who had become her savior. She could not yet speak his language, but her emotions were clear: fear, curiosity, and a budding trust that slowly warmed the icy distance between their species. The AI began translating more subtle vibrations from her body, giving Elias glimpses into her thoughts. She had never encountered humans, and yet she sensed something uniquely compelling about him. He was not the strongest alien she had observed, not the most powerful, but he possessed a courage and calmness that seemed almost foreign to the galaxy, traits her people valued above all else. She hummed softly, producing a low, melodic sound, almost like a vibration through the air. The AI interpreted it as, "I feel safer with you." Elias smiled faintly, a mix of relief and determination settling over him. He began examining the ship's core systems more closely. The hyperdrive was severely damaged, and even if he repaired it, the stealth and navigation systems were offline. He would need to improvise, to use his skills as a pilot in ways he had never imagined. Lyra watched intently as he worked, tilting her head and occasionally extending a delicate hand toward the consoles, as if she wanted to help. He let her touch a panel carefully, and she reacted almost immediately, her touch producing faint energy pulses that seemed to stabilize the failing circuits. Elias blinked in surprise. "You have energy," he murmured, more to himself than to her. The AI confirmed unusual bioelectric readings coursing from her hands, a natural ability he had never seen. Lyra's species, Elias realized, had more than biological uniqueness. They possessed an energy that could strengthen and protect others. He could feel it as a subtle warmth, calming his mind and increasing his focus. This bond, though unspoken, became their secret advantage. They were no longer just pilot and rescued alien. They were a team, connected by trust, survival, and a shared purpose. As hours passed, the storm outside intensified. The ship groaned under pressure, and the radar picked up movement in the distance. Small crafts were approaching, darting through the blizzard with alarming speed. Elias recognized their patterns instantly: hunters, agile and relentless, scanning for any life forms that might be valuable or dangerous. His heart quickened, but he refused to let fear dominate his mind. Survival demanded strategy, and he had plenty of it left. Lyra noticed the change in his demeanor and reacted instinctively. She leaned closer, pressing a hand against his chest, her touch steadying him in a way that no human ally ever had. He allowed himself a brief moment of clarity, realizing that this small, vulnerable alien held a strength that complemented his own. Together, they were stronger. Elias quickly accessed the ship's emergency protocols. He could attempt a stealth maneuver to evade the hunters, but the hyperdrive remained offline. That left one option: use the environment. The ice storm was violent, unpredictable, but it could conceal them. He plotted a risky course through the storm, weaving among the towering ice formations that surrounded the planet's surface. Lyra watched, understanding his intent even if she did not fully grasp the danger. She hummed again, energy pulses rippling through his hands as he adjusted the navigation controls. The hunters grew closer, and Elias could see their silhouettes on the radar. Panic might have caused a novice pilot to make mistakes, but he remained calm. Every decision was deliberate. Every movement of the ship was precise. Lyra's energy helped him anticipate subtle shifts in the ship's stability, giving him reflexes he had never thought possible. He realized that humans' legendary adaptability was complemented by her species' rare abilities, and together they formed a synergy neither could have achieved alone. Hours felt like minutes as they navigated the storm. Ice scraped the hull, sensors flickered, and the hunters closed in relentlessly. Elias maintained a delicate balance, guiding the ship through narrow passages and over jagged ice cliffs. At one point, a small piece of debris struck the ship's side, and Lyra instinctively shifted closer to him, her energy pulse intensifying. He steadied the controls, and with a deep breath, pushed the ship into a sudden dive that sent the pursuing crafts veering off course. The storm was their shield, and human ingenuity paired with alien abilities made them nearly untouchable. When the immediate threat passed, Elias allowed himself a brief moment to observe Lyra. Her eyes glimmered with a mixture of curiosity and admiration. She understood that he was not just a protector, he was someone willing to risk everything for a life not his own. The AI quietly translated another of her melodic vibrations. "You are brave." Elias chuckled softly, brushing a lock of glowing hair from her face. "I'm just stubborn," he said. That evening, as the ship drifted into a safer zone within the storm, Elias worked on a makeshift communicator to send a distress signal. He had learned that outside help might be the only way to escape completely, but he also knew that the hunters could intercept it. Lyra leaned close, her hands pressing against his shoulders, a gentle reminder that they were not alone. Her energy pulsed in rhythm with the ship's systems, stabilizing circuits and giving him clarity. Through the night, they repaired what they could. Lyra's species, energy allowed the damaged gravity fields to function enough to keep the ship from collapsing, and Elias handled navigation, weapons, and communications. In those hours, they became more than allies, they became a unit, blending human ingenuity and alien gifts into a single force. Every moment of tension strengthened their bond, though neither spoke the words that humans typically use to define trust. By dawn, the storm had subsided slightly, revealing the ice world's vast, frozen landscape. Shimmering cliffs and valleys stretched to the horizon, reflecting the pale sunlight in patterns that mirrored Lyra's skin. Elias gazed out, contemplating the journey ahead. The hunters were still in the area, likely regrouping, but he now had a plan. They would use the planet itself as a trap, drawing the pursuers into hazardous terrain where the storm and jagged ice could do most of the work. Lyra hummed softly again, her energy coursing into him and steadying his resolve. She had not spoken a word, yet her presence communicated volumes. Elias realized something fundamental. This bond was stronger than language. Survival depended on mutual trust, courage, and understanding, values humans were known for across the galaxy. That recognition, in turn, gave him a sense of hope. Humanity was not alone in the universe, but even when isolated, the qualities that defined them could overcome impossible odds. The hunters' crafts appeared on the horizon once more, but this time Elias was ready. Using the terrain, the energy Lyra provided, and the ingenuity born of decades of survival training, he prepared to face them directly. The human-alien duo, united by circumstance and trust, represented a force far greater than either of them alone. And as the first ships of the pursuers drew closer, Elias felt a confidence he had not experienced before. They would survive, they would escape, and they would do so together. Elias felt the icy wind pressing against the hull as the ship skidded across the frozen landscape. The storm had returned with a vengeance, yet it brought an unexpected advantage. Visibility for the hunters was minimal. He knew they had little time before the pursuing crafts would be forced to retreat or crash in the jagged terrain. Lyra, still perched beside him, her small hands glowing faintly with energy pulses, sensed his determination and mirrored it. Though she could not speak human words, her presence communicated readiness, trust, and courage. He studied the approaching signals on the radar. There were 3 crafts, sleek, predatory in design and fast, designed for capturing vulnerable life forms. He knew their weapons could shred the ship's hull in seconds if they got a direct hit. Yet Elias remained calm. He had always thrived under pressure, and now he was not alone. Lyra's energy field intertwined with the ship's failing circuits, stabilizing systems in ways no human technology could match. She hummed a soft, steady vibration, almost like a heartbeat, and he felt his own focus sharpen. The plan was risky. Elias would lead the hunters into the ice canyons, where maneuvering would be difficult and the storm could conceal their movements. He adjusted the navigation manually, calculating speed and trajectory with precision. Lyra extended her hands, her fingertips brushing the control panels. Energy rippled outward, stabilizing circuits and enhancing responsiveness. Elias smiled faintly, impressed. Her species' abilities complemented his human instincts perfectly. Together, they were more than the sum of their parts. As they approached the canyon entrance, a low tremor ran through the ship. Ice shifted beneath them, and Elias had to correct immediately. Lyra leaned closer instinctively, her hand pressing against his arm, energy pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. The human-alien connection was subtle but undeniable. Even in the middle of the storm and danger, a sense of trust anchored them both. He adjusted the ship's tilt, narrowly avoiding a jagged ice spire that could have ripped the hull apart. The hunters followed, unaware that Elias had prepared the terrain as a trap. He activated minor gravity fluctuations to make the ship more unpredictable, forcing their crafts into tight, dangerous turns. Ice crumbled under the turbulence, creating obstacles the pursuing vessels could not anticipate. One of the hunters struck a cliffside, forcing it to spiral uncontrollably before vanishing into the storm. Elia's eyes gleamed. The combination of human cunning and Lyra's energy field was turning the tide. Hours passed in tense precision. The storm's fury, the ship's failing systems, and the hunters' persistence made each decision critical. Elias relied on instinct honed through years of piloting in hostile space, but now instinct was enhanced by an alien ally's abilities. Lyra hummed again, and the ship responded immediately, engines stabilizing for split-second maneuvers. Her energy radiated a warmth that eased his fear, allowed him to calculate with clarity, and reassured him that failure was not an option. Eventually, 2 hunters were neutralized, crashing into ice spires and disappearing beneath the frozen surface. The last vessel remained, agile and fast, but Elias anticipated its movements. Using the canyon's natural curves, he lured it into a confined area where a sudden ice slide blocked its path temporarily. The hunter attempted to reverse, but the uneven terrain caused it to spin uncontrollably. Elias knew this delay would be enough to escape, though the danger was far from over. Lyra whispered, not in words but through vibration, a pattern the AI translated as "we can survive this." Elias nodded, keeping focus on the remaining hunter. Energy pulsed from her fingertips into the ship's hull, reinforcing structural integrity and stabilizing systems that were moments from failure. Her connection was subtle yet vital, enhancing human reflexes and strategic thinking. Elias had never imagined survival could feel so intertwined with another life form. As they maneuvered past the final hunter, a soft crackle echoed through the ship. The hyperdrive, damaged but not destroyed, could be coaxed into one final jump. Elias initiated the emergency sequence, fingers flying across the controls. Lyra's energy pulses intensified, almost like a rhythm guiding him. He felt a calm clarity unlike anything before, and in that moment the impossible seemed achievable. The jump was violent. The ship shuddered as systems strained against the sudden surge. Outside, the frozen world's storm vanished into a blur, replaced by the deep blackness of space. Elia's pulse was high yet steady, and he felt Lyra beside him, exhausted but alert. They had survived the storm, the hunters, and the icy terrain. A sense of quiet triumph filled the cabin, a recognition that they had relied on each other fully and succeeded. In the aftermath, Elias began emergency repairs on the hyperdrive to ensure long-term escape. Lyra remained at his side, humming faintly, energy still stabilizing failing circuits. Their connection, born from survival, had evolved. He understood more about her species, their resilience, intelligence, and capacity for empathy, while she had learned of human courage, patience, and adaptability. Though words were limited, their bond was undeniable. Communication slowly improved as the AI continued translating fragments of her sounds. She described her people, their nomadic bioships, and the threat that had destroyed them. Elias listened, offering silent encouragement and understanding. Even without shared language, trust and compassion bridged the gap. The galaxy was vast and dangerous, yet moments like this reminded him of humanity's unique strength, the ability to inspire loyalty, hope, and courage in others. Elias realized that Lyra's survival depended not just on skill or technology, but on mutual understanding and cooperation. He marveled at how simple gestures, sharing warmth, offering reassurance, remaining calm under pressure, had built a foundation that no weapon could destroy. In the heart of danger, humanity's qualities had proven powerful, not in isolation, but in their capacity to connect with other beings. As the ship glided through empty space, Elias and Lyra began planning their next steps. They would locate safe zones, repair the hyperdrive fully, and find a path to Lyra's people. The bond they had forged during the storm and pursuit became their compass. Survival was no longer a matter of skill alone. It was also about trust, courage, and the shared understanding that neither would abandon the other. Hours turned into days as they navigated toward safer territory. The hunters, damaged and slowed by the storm and terrain, were no longer a threat. Elias took the time to teach Lyra basic navigation, while she demonstrated subtle abilities that enhanced the ship's systems in ways he could not fully comprehend. Together, they complemented one another perfectly, human ingenuity tempered by alien skill and intuition. One quiet moment, as the ship passed a cluster of distant stars, Lyra rested her head against Elias' shoulder, energy pulses steady and calming. The AI interpreted her hum as, "I trust you." Elias smiled softly, understanding that this was the highest compliment of survival, one that transcended language, culture, and species. Humanity, he realized, was not only defined by technology or strength, but by the courage to protect, to trust, and to inspire hope in others. The journey ahead remained perilous. There were still enemies in the galaxy, still unknown dangers, and the path to Lyra's people was uncertain. Yet Elias felt a renewed confidence. He was not alone. He had proven that humanity could survive even against impossible odds when guided by courage, empathy, and cooperation. And he had found a companion who shared that vision, whose strengths complemented his own, and whose presence reminded him that survival was about connection as much as skill. The final scenes of Part 3 emphasized hope, trust, and cooperation. Elias and Lyra emerged from the storms and threats stronger, bonded, and ready to face the galaxy together. Their story was a testament to humanity's unique qualities: courage under pressure, empathy toward others, and the ability to inspire loyalty and hope across species. The alien girl's presence was not merely survival. It was a recognition that humanity's strength could touch even the farthest reaches of the stars. As the ship set course for distant coordinates, Elias reflected on the journey. Humanity was capable of more than conquest or survival. It could nurture, protect, and inspire. That realization, reinforced by Lyra's trust and energy, became his guiding principle. The galaxy was wide and full of challenges, yet together, human and alien, they could face anything. Their bond, born from necessity and strengthened by courage, had transformed mere survival into a partnership, one that would define the next chapter of their lives, far beyond the frozen world that had tested them both.